Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm happy that you are all here. You don't have to be here, and you are here, so I'm used to lectures where people have to be there. So. And now for something completely different. I'm a computer scientist, and today I'd like to question some of the conventional wisdom associated with computers and computation in general. And let me start with our Latin motto in the School of Computing, which is sum ergo computo. I am, therefore I compute. And the motto really speaks at different levels. At one level, it says really what our identity is. I am a computer scientist. Computing is what I do. My professional existence is to study the science of computing, the theory and the practice. I am, therefore I compute. But at the deeper level, it says being is computing. And this is the deeper level that I would like to talk to you about and challenge your understanding of what computers are and what computation is. So, which brings me to the question, what does it mean to compute? What is computation? Is it calculation? 2 plus 2 equals 4? Is this what computers do, just add numbers? Or is it logical operations, A and B implies C? What about text, image, and sound processing? Are they computations? What about reading input from the outside world? The thermostat in your house reads the temperature. Is this a computation? What about affecting the outside world? Your thermostat tells the furnace to raise the temperature or lower it. Is this a computation? Or is computation limited to what mathematical models, the mathematicians tell us that here is a model of a computer? There is something called recursive functions that some people tell us is exactly what computers do. Recursive functions are these self-referential processes like the pictures of Maurice Escher. Everybody knows the pictures of Escher. They are pictures inside a picture inside a picture. And some people tell us that computers only do that, recursive functions. How about the neurons in our brains? Are they computing or are they doing something magical? What about physical phenomena like in the spring, a flower opening? Is that process a computation? What about chemical reactions? Are they considered computations? What about cell multiplication, DNA replications, electron spin deep in the heart of matter? Do they qualify? So this is a long list. So I'll get to a question. Are they all computations? Perhaps some of them are not. But if you tell me some of them are not, you'll have to tell me why they are not computations. More importantly, have I exhausted the list? Or are there other things out there that we can also call computations? I would like to argue that computation is ubiquitous. To be is to compute. And we will explore this notion throughout my next few minutes. Computing permeates the universe and drives it. Every atom, every molecule, every cell, everywhere at every moment is performing a computation. From human cognition to photosynthesis in plants, all the way to the migration of butterflies, every transformational process involves a computation. Does the atom, the molecule, or the cell know that it is computing? We don't care. We will never know, and we should not really care. Whether the atom or the molecule or the cell or any of the constituents of the universe knows that it is performing a computation is no more relevant than your computer on your laptop knowing that it is computing. The important thing is that the computational paradigm is a very powerful but very simple explanation of the processes of nature. And it allows us to understand how nature works. I can explain nature by saying acquiring, manipulating, and transforming and transmitting information is all what nature does. And this is how we can better understand the world that surrounds us. Being is computing. Here are two physicists. So you don't say that I'm a computer scientist and therefore I think that everything is a computation. Here are two physicists, and let's see what they are telling us. Tommaso Toffoli says, in a sense, nature has been continually computing the next state of the universe for billions of years. All we have to do, and actually all we can do, is hitch a ride on this huge ongoing computation. David Deutsch, think of all our knowledge-generating processes, our whole culture and civilization, and all the thought processes in the minds of every individual, and indeed the entire evolving biosphere as well, as being a gigantic computation. The whole thing is executing a self-motivated, self-generating computer program. Which brings us to conventional versus unconventional. Here are conventional computers. Everything you work with today is conventional, from a huge supercomputer to your laptop to the chip in your toaster. They are all conventional computers. And what do? Everything we do today is conventional, from word processing to email to science, math, and engineering. It's all conventional computations. Is anything wrong with conventional computers? No, they have served us very well, and they will continue to serve us for a while. But they are reaching the limit. You may not know it, but they are reaching the limit. When it comes to processing huge amounts of data and performing huge numbers of number crunching in a reasonable amount of time, our computers today are hitting a wall. For example, I work with surgeons in the KGH. Suppose that a surgeon wants to perform a surgery on a patient, but before performing the surgery, he would like to practice on a three-dimensional model of the patient that involves every component of the patient's body, and then be able to rotate it in real time and execute an operation on it. No computer today can do this for this surgeon. Conventional computers are hopeless for solving unconventional problems. The previous one that we talked about, the three-dimensional model, was a conventional problem. There's nothing magical about it. But then there are things that are unconventional, and these pose an even bigger problem to today's computers. Here are some unconventional computations. When the data you are working with change with the passage of time, or when you have deadlines that you have to meet, or when the laws of nature interfere and control the computation you are working with. Imagine you're working on your laptop and there is something outside that's affecting your computation, and so on. What are unconventional computers that will be able to handle all these, all this world? Parallel computers, analog computers, biological computers, quantum computers, and accelerating computers. I'm going to try and cover a little bit of these. So it's a January morning, and you just woke up, and there's a pile of snow in your driveway, and you're trying to clear it, and it looks hopeless because the snow keeps falling and you are slow. In the meantime, your neighbor comes out with his 4 kids, and they clear their driveway in no time at all. They drive to work and come back, and you are still shoveling. And by the way, I want to give credit for these slides to my daughter Sophia here. She came from Montreal to listen to me. So thank you. Which brings me to parallel computing. Why be happy with one laptop? You can put a whole bunch of them to work on your problem, and that will speed things up. And why restrict yourself to 25? You can have 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000. There are 1,000,000,000,000 angels on the head of a pin. You make them smaller and smaller and smaller. Nature has done it before. This is the leaf of a plant, and on the surface of the leaf are little mouths. And these mouths are called stomata from the Greek. And their job is to open wide to let carbon dioxide in, and however, they want to be careful not to let precious water vapor out. How they do it is by beautiful, magnificent dance around the leaf. Every one of these stomata looks around it. And if the ones around it are closed, it opens. If the ones around it are open, it closes. And they go around this in what we would call a distributed parallel algorithm. Enough to make a computer scientist green with envy. How does nature compute? Well, this is a big question, so we can narrow it down. For example, does nature use infinite precision real number when it's doing its own computation? Numbers like this. Well, our computers today cannot handle infinite precision real numbers. They have a word size, 32 bits or whatever, and that's it. 64 bits, that's it. Can I hope for an unconventional computer that would do it? Let's look at this interval. Those of you who are mathematicians will know that the interval from 0 to 1 is an infinite interval. In fact, for every two numbers in that interval, there is an infinite number between them. An infinite number of numbers between every two numbers. Can I traverse this infinite space in constant time? Well, I can. Suppose I can rig my computer to behave like this ball that is going on this smooth incline. The smooth incline has an infinite number of points, and yet the ball touches them all and doesn't miss a single one of them. I've done it. I've traversed an infinite sequence in finite time. Now I'm going to ask you, what is the meaning of life? And I don't mean in a philosophical or religious way. Let's ask in a biocomputational way, if you want. I just invented this word. These three fellows were given the Nobel Prize for medicine in 1962 when they discovered the structure of DNA. But if you read the citation, what does it say? It says that they were given for their discoveries concerning the molecular structure of nucleic acids and its significance for information transfer. Information transfer, that's the secret. That's the meaning of life. Information and computation is the answer. And I'm going to try and convince you very quickly. Information is fundamental to all life on Earth. Every cell in our body is packed with information. And our cell has a little computer in it. And that computer has one instruction. Make a copy of yourself. Make a copy of yourself. And you keep doing this. Because the moment you lose this information, you die. And we eat in order to keep the cell doing this. We keep providing energy so that the cell can keep copying itself. I am, therefore I compute, indeed. Here it is, that magic molecule, the secret of life. It's copying itself right now so that you can continue to live. 1 gram of DNA can hold as much information as 1 trillion compact discs. If you fill this auditorium with compact discs, 1 gram of DNA will do the trick. And if you compare a DNA computer with a conventional computer, the DNA computer wins hands down. We can solve very complicated problems by encoding the data in the DNA. And in fact, I had a student here build a DNA computer in a test tube, and we solved a problem of breaking a cipher just as a proof of principle. And if DNA is not small enough for you, you can go down, way down, to the level of the atom. Richard Feynman said, there is plenty of room at the bottom. So let's suppose I encode the zeros and ones in an atom. Okay? I will use one atom to be either a 0 or a 1. I can put the entire knowledge of humanity in a cube 0.1 millimeter to the side. All right? Every book that was ever published can be encoded in this little cube. All right, let's move to quantum computing. Your computers today work with 0 and 1. It's either 0 or 1 at any given time. In a quantum world, it is 0 and 1 at the same time. It's not to be or not to be. It is to be and not to be. Spin up or spin down? No, it's going to be spin up and spin down at the same time. And why is that interesting? Well, if one bit, which we call a qubit affectionately, if one bit can be 0 and 1 at the same time, imagine a register of 3. They can be in 8 possible states simultaneously. 1,024 of them can be in 2 to the 1,024 states simultaneously, a number that boggles the mind. And why is that good? Well, go back to parallelism. They can do a tremendous amount of work simultaneously. One example is factoring. I can factor a number as huge as this one with a quantum computer very quickly. If you have a 1024-bit number, using today's computers and the best algorithm, it would take you 221 years, which is longer than the universe has been around. On a quantum computer, it would take 1 second. And we developed a new game of chess here at Queens. Each piece is in a superposition of 2 pieces, and you don't know what they are until you touch the piece to move it, and it will tell you, I'm a queen, or I'm a pawn, or I'm a bishop, and then you will have to move it as a pawn or a bishop, but then it will again assume a superposition, and you will not know what it is. Solar energy. We were talking about saving the universe. So we all put solar cells on our roofs, and we are trying to be smart. A solar cell has an efficiency, at best, if you are engineered very well, of 27%. Going back to the leaves, leaves have an efficiency of 99%. They absorb they absorb the energy of the sun in a very efficient way. And this is all due to some bacteria called the FMO bacterium. The FMO bacterium allows the photon that hits the leaf to traverse very quickly to the reaction center, the CPU of the leaf, and turn itself into chemical energy. And it does this by virtue of the quantumness. It explores all possible paths that lead to the central processing unit and finds the shortest one and goes there directly. Okay, how many times have you looked at this and wondered, did my computer crash, or is it doing work still? Shall I abort the process, or maybe wait? In 1 second, it will tell me it's done. Wouldn't it be nice to have a little device which tells you, this program is going to crash, don't run it, or this program is going to go forever, don't run it, or this program will do just nicely, run it. Theoretical computer scientists tell us this is hopeless. You cannot do it. You cannot have a device like this. But I can. I can have a computer that doubles its speed at every step. So I can have on the side another machine that is called an accelerating machine, and it executes the first step in 1 second, the second step in half a second, the third step in a quarter of a second, and the mathematicians among you will tell you that the sum of this series is 2. In 2 seconds, I know the answer, and I can go on and run my program in confidence, or not run it if it tells me it's going to run forever. And we did many other things. We used slime mold, real slime mold on a real map of Canada to compute the highway system of Canada, and it replicated the highway system. We put the mold in Toronto and food in the major centers, and the mold expanded and recreated the highway system of Canada exactly as we use it today. If you can get your hand on a black hole, you can do some very interesting computations. Or you can harness time travel for your purposes, and you can see all this on my webpage. We have algorithms that work very well just if we have a time machine. But are computers universal? We saw that computation is universal. Are computers themselves universal? Well, here is the conventional wisdom today. Any computation that can be performed by any physical computing device can be performed by any universal computer as long as the latter has sufficient time and memory. True? Well, the idea here is that they are all the same. They're going to simulate each other. Whatever you can do on your cell phone, you can do on your toaster, you can do on your camera, you can do on your laptop, your palm top, or whatever. True? False. No finite computer can be universal. Here is my challenge. You can find this on my webpage and try to solve it. I will put a monetary prize on it. There are clocks hanging on the wall, and they are ticking away as you are going to perform your computation. And they are producing random numbers. They are not even ticking as clocks. They are producing random numbers. And the challenge is, I want you, at a moment that I will define, I want you to compute the average of all the times shown. All right? But remember, the moment you start reading them, they have already produced new values at the other end of the wall. So you have to be careful. No computer that is incapable of producing n operations for n clocks will fail. And there is no hope of simulating this operation on another computer because simulation simply does not make sense. The clocks are ticking, the information is lost. We're back to information. If we don't capture the information at the right time, too bad, it's gone. And this is applicable to all the models of computation, the ones we have today and the ones we'll have in the future. They are all doomed. None of them can claim to be universal. And that brings us to the final little story here. It's an endearing story between a computer scientist on the right and an engineer on the left. The engineer's here. It is said with affection, okay? Our engineer is very proud of his computer. He goes to his girlfriend and says, look, I just built a universal computer that can do n operations per time unit. And Alice says, Bob, what if I have a problem that requires n+1 operations? What are you going to do then? Bob has an exclamation mark on his head, and he says, okay, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. And he comes back the next day with a bigger machine, and he says, now I have a computer that does n+1 operations per time unit. What do you say to that, Alice? And Alice says, well, Bob, what if I have n+2 operations that I need, not just n+1? Now he has two exclamation marks. But Bob is an enterprising young man. He's an engineer. He doesn't take no for an answer. He goes back and comes back with an even bigger machine. And now Alice is really starting to get bored with this game, and she says, Bob, listen, what about if I have n+3? And Bob is crushed because he knows he cannot win this game. It's an escalating game. Every time he comes back with a machine, she poses a bigger riddle that he cannot solve. And so will we ever have a universal computer? Well, only one type of computer will be universal, and one that can do an infinite number of operations per time unit. And that would be the universe itself. Thank you.